Most Disney Parks fans know that the 1964 World's Fair gave us great moments with Mr. Lincoln, the Carousel of Progress, and Ford's Skyway to Tomorrow, which brought us Primeval World. You know, the dinosaurs inside of the Disneyland Railroad. And it also gave Disneyland one of its most beloved attractions, It's a Small World. But did you know that there was a fifth inspiration that Walt Disney took from the World's Fair and brought back home to Disneyland? Did you know there was a Club 33 before Club 33, and it was even way more exclusive, and it existed right back here? And this fifth little-known inspiration came from It's a Small World, or It's a Small World adjacent. The Red Wagon Inn was an opening day restaurant at Disneyland, but exactly 10 years to the date, July 18th, 1965, the Red Wagon Inn would close down and begin its transition into the Plaza Inn. Simply named the Plaza Inn because it was literally just steps away from the Plaza at Disneyland, or what we now refer to as the Hub. But the edit of the Plaza Inn was way more than a name change. It was a complete thematic overhaul. It was Walt Disney's chance to get it right and do it the way that he always wanted it to be, but it just didn't work out the first time when he had about 100 other projects going all on at once. And if you think about it, the restaurant was already wildly crazy successful. It's pretty nuts to renovate a restaurant that's already booming day in and day out. But you know Walt, he wanted to get it right. $1.7 million in 1965 got the Plaza Inn to where Walt wanted it to be. But in this transformation, there was one detail that was lost, and I have to say that personally, it was probably Walt's favorite little nook inside of this restaurant. It was Walt Disney's private club. Years prior, Walt had wanted to turn the Enchanted Tiki Room into an upscale dining entertainment experience, but those plans didn't pan out. But with New Orleans Square on the way, he was taking another swing at upscale entertainment dining with the Blue Bayou. But the World's Fair got his gears turning on maybe there was another one to come. Because it's in this moment where Walt Disney, once again, is pivoting over to another way of thinking. I have my theme park, I serve food in it. How do I serve themed food experiences in my theme park? And is there a way to make a upscale entertainment dining offering for folks that want to go low and slow, taking the ambiance, taking the vibes that is Disneyland? These were the first generations of vibe chasers, not ride crushers. No offense to the ride crushing community, but I'm not one of you. Believe it or not, the concept of Club 33 started right here in this building where the first ever private club at Disneyland was hosted. But before this idea would fully formulate, Walt first had to tend to a World's Fair. At the 1964 World's Fair, a lounge was hidden at the base of the Tower of the Four Winds, which this isn't that, but it's inspired by it, so it will do for this storytelling. The lounge was above the gift shop that was at the base of the Tower of the Four Winds. And it had huge windows, allowing guests inside of the lounge to be able to look out and catch the vibe of the World's Fair, but people on the outside couldn't look in to see what was happening on that second floor lounge. It was, and indeed, a VIP experience. The lounge that inspired Walt was officially listed as a Pepsi Hospitality Center for UNICEF. Those were the sponsors of It's a Small World. When Walt Disney saw the success of the Pepsi-Cola UNICEF Lounge, it had to get his wheels turning. Wait a minute, I have a place like this back home in Disneyland for all my friends and family and people that I need to impress the idea of Disneyland upon. Maybe building something like this back home would be a great thing to do. And I have an entire second floor of my passion project, New Orleans Square, that has no plans. What if that is where I put one of these? You see, New Orleans Square wouldn't open up until 1966. And then Club 33 would show up 1 year later in 1967, along with Pirates of the Caribbean and the Blue Bayou. But in 1965, when Walt Disney re-themed the Red Wagon Inn into the Plaza Inn, he lost that special location, his hideaway. But don't worry, he would dream of recreating it right up here with the advent of Club 33. And even though Walt and Lillian would pick out all kinds of artifacts to put inside of the club, unfortunately, Walt Disney would die at the end of '66 and never make it to his next club in 1967. Imagine being invited to Walt's apartment. It's tiny, it's cute, it has perfect views of the town square, but it's also Walt and Lillian's private residence. So you probably didn't want to hang out too long, which is why they also had the patio next door where you could sit above town square, look out into town square and catch a vibe. And it was a much bigger space, a beautiful patio where Walt and Lillian could entertain. However, if Walt wanted to take people further into the park, there's a couple of problems. He's Walt Disney, everybody loves him, and that's convenient when it's convenient, but it's desperately inconvenient when it's not convenient. Meaning, if Walt had dignitaries or VIPs or potential sponsors with him, Walt needed a way to get through the park where he wouldn't have to be slowed down by guests, and also, in the process, break somebody's heart by saying, sorry, I'm too busy for an autograph. Because, you know, selfies didn't exist back then. But imagine being Walt's guest, hanging out with him in his apartment, and then you need to cut across town square because Walt's gonna take you to a secret little hideout. Walt brings you across town square and then takes you over here where you're gonna go behind Main Street. And keep in mind, back in the opening of the park, Main Street USA's tenants were not a part of Disneyland. Individuals owned all the shops up and down Main Street, and many of them would actually be able to park their cars behind their shops when they came in the morning, and at the end of the day, after they close up their shop, go out back, get in their car and drive off. Mind-blowing with the way that the park works today. And also keep in mind that this would be a way where Walt and his dignitaries or high-profile guests could easily move down Main Street, at the time the most congested part of Disneyland, without being stopped, without gathering any attention. But imagine Walt and his crew taking you backstage and your VIP experience has just begun. Let's go. Where eventually you'd be able to pop out a private exit, come up a couple of stairs on the edge of the Red Wagon Inn, and don't worry, Walt's got you covered because you have your very own private club. Right here was where the idea and concept of Club 33 and having exclusive clubs in the park began. Friends, if you're enjoying today's episode, please consider subscribing to Hey Brickey. And if you'd like to help support the content and help me keep making 3 videos a week, the best way to do that is support the channel by grabbing your own Walt 1901 hoodie, available in the link below. Only available while we're in the 40Ks, and we're already 16% of the way through it. Thank you so much for watching. Now back to today's video. At the end of the Red Wagon Inn, there was a small stairway and a private entrance that would lead you into Walt Disney's very own hideout, or the hideaway as they like to call it. Walt Disney would use this private space to entertain different sponsors, dignitaries, true VIPs, and also some of his best buds. And inside it was equipped with a full bar, which is nice, a private restroom, very nice, and being adjacent to the Red Wagon Inn, you know that they could also have food served to them in a private fashion. And then if we take a couple of steps over, there was a giant picture window for Walt and Lillian and friends to be able to look out into the park privately while they were sitting back and enjoying the hideout, the hideaway. Walt's little clubhouse was right here. And because this is such a off the beaten path Disney fun fact, it's not very well documented. Thanks to the late great Jim Korkis, I was able to find that this was here, but there also is a little bit of debate. Is it on the north side of the Red Wagon Inn, or is it on the south side of the Red Wagon Inn? And I'm calling it Red Wagon Inn to keep this historically accurate. Now on the south side of the Red Wagon Inn, now the Plaza Inn, there is also a private entryway that has another one of those private picture windows where the guests' dining room is not back here. So it could have been on this side as well. Either way, one of these back pockets was the little entertaining spot that Walt Disney had for top level guests and his best buds, and I love it. And hey, comment below, which side would you rather have? It'd be tempting to have the Sleeping Beauty castle view, but I love the first aid corner of Main Street. I love this little cul-de-sac. It feels very, very private and exclusive. It's one of the few areas of Main Street, USA where you can kind of get lost and everything else disappears. So my pick would be back here in this corner, but there'd be nothing wrong with the other side as well. A couple of the facts that make me think that it's on the north side of the building is A, Walt would love to have a private view of Sleeping Beauty Castle, as that was the heart of his park. Also, if this did have a private restroom, there are now public restrooms directly behind me. So I'm thinking that all that plumbing could be tied together, or who knows, maybe those bathrooms were Walt's private bathrooms and now we're all using them. Regardless, imagine what it would have been like to cut back on Main Street and to be able to have a private dinner, private conversation, or a drink with the man that dreamt up all of this for millions and millions of families and friends to come. When Walt Disney saw the Pepsi Lounge at the base of the Tower of the Four Winds, he knew that what he had back home at Disneyland could be elevated, marketed, and serve a very particular customer, the VIP level of Disneyland. And Walt and Lillian were so excited about the idea of creating a private club back home in Disneyland that they shopped around trying to find all kinds of different antiques and collectibles that they could decorate the more accessible clubhouse that they were imagining back home in Disneyland. So unfortunately, Walt Disney never got to see the success of Club 33 and what it would end up evolving into when finally he made a club for more than just friends and family and VIPs to experience at the Disneyland park. Nor did Walt know that he was creating one of the most exclusive reservations to get not only in Southern California, but pretty much in all of California. Getting a table here is something that a lot of people put a lot of effort into. And Walt would have no idea that the club would do exactly what he probably dreamt it would. Celebrities, captains of industry, families would all become members here. But probably more important than who these people are, it's what these people became. And this, I think, would have been Walt's dream, that a real little community was created inside of Disneyland, inside of Walt's Club 33. And as someone who's been fortunate enough to go here more than 33 times, that was the thing that I took away from the club. Seeing the different members interact, hearing them catch up and asking about how each other's kids were, and knowing that some of them have spent Christmases, Thanksgiving, Halloweens, and family traditions inside of here, that became my biggest takeaway each and every time, is that this truly became a community with a smaller audience, a smaller footprint, people celebrating here, having great nights here time and time again. They became friends. They got to know each other, and there is definitely a community vibe in there. And to me, that is the most impressive thing about being in the restaurant or the newly opened lounge that showed up just a handful of years ago. I think this is the part that Walt Disney would have found truly neat, that Disneyland had transformed fully from amusement park to theme park to real little city, a little community. And I've always tried to imagine just how happy this would make him if he could see what this idea manifested into. Because a lot of times as a creative, you come up with the idea, you plant the seeds, but you have no idea how that imagination, how that crop will grow. And Walt, knowing that this exists where families became friends and grew old together and celebrated all along the way inside of Disneyland. And over here at the casting sheet in the bottom right corner, there's another little bit of information for today's video right here. If you know, you know. And now we all know. Walt's Hideaway may be gone, but something that did come back is the Red Wagon. It's no longer the Red Wagon Inn, but it's the little Red Wagon, the corn dog cart that sits on the south side of the Plaza Inn, keeps that opening day namesake alive, and also corn dogs. This little porch has never made any sense to me. I always wondered why it was here, wondered what its purpose was, but now I know its purpose and its intent. It was Walt's porch. And that makes it even more awesome to come up here and sit and hang out knowing that you're in the spot where Walt had a good time with all of his best friends and important folks that he brought to Disneyland. And now I understand its purpose and why it's placed here, which is why I love Disneyland, because everything has a purpose and a place. And it is my job that I've given myself to understand what all of those are. Friends, if you had fun looking at the origins of Club 33 and the first ever private club in Disneyland, watch this video right over here where I show you 10 rules that Walt Disney broke to build Disneyland and how he succeeded when everybody told him he would fail. Thanks a lot for watching. I appreciate you.